can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I never, and most of you know me pretty well, I never really prepare anything or think about anything that I'm going to say pretty much ever. And I actually made the effort to attempt to think about what to say as we started this morning. And I came up with nothing. And, it really was just, I actually thought about it. I thought about it last night. I thought about it this morning. I thought about it just 10 minutes ago, sitting there in the office. And there are no words really to express what this experience has been like for the world. And here we sit with, just a relatively small group of people in this space, and all I can feel is just tremendous gratitude and lucky to be alive and sitting here. Since the last time we met in this temple, March 12th, 2020, about 16 months ago, 4 million people have passed. And that's really, I think, what sits heaviest with me right now is just the tremendous trauma and difficulty that the world has faced. And most of you also know that I never really talk about current events, public events. We have a rule in the temple: we don't talk politics and we don't talk religion. It's what keeps people coming back here. And I do my best to always avoid kind of relative topics and just keep things very general. But this is something that's been unavoidable. And I just wanted to bring recognition and gratitude to all of you that are here. For Maggie and Travis and everybody else that has done everything for this space, all of you, to keep it here for the last 15, 16 months. And so again, as I have been for many, I think at many points throughout this 15-year journey with the Dharma Bum Temple, just filled with tremendous gratitude and appreciation, literally to being alive and sitting here. Because like I said, there's 4 million people and then some that are not. So with that light news to start our morning, it is great to see you all back here. In some ways it feels like we've never left, and in some ways it feels like it's been, forever. Somebody said they were nervous coming into this morning, and Kathy, you're laughing, probably similar maybe, but they used the metaphor of it, like a kid going back to school, the first day of school. That it's a strange time, So with that, we'll go ahead and we'll just sit. For those who are here for the first time, welcome. A couple things to tell you before we start the meditation practice. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? Oh, and to our millions of followers that are joining us live on YouTube. It's good to see you all. It's nice to be sitting here and not where I was. But that was nice also. But it's nice to be here. And again, thank you to our millions of followers that are now joining us around the globe. So again, with sitting, nothing will happen. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. Maybe they're having a barbecue next door. Who knows? This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on a chair, also just trying to sit up straight. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever is comfortable, relaxing the shoulders. I'll suggest closing the eyes if comfortable or slightly open. Mouth will be open or closed, whatever's comfortable. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And again, starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Going throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, simply sitting, breathing. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sit, breathe. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands across the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. And you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. But meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's simply sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. And that's why it's such an easy practice, because you just have to be nice to people. That's it. Just be nice. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. Why did they do this? Why did they do that? We spend so much time trying to ponder, control, and fix the actions of others, which is silly in a way because we can't even control our own actions, but for some reason we think we're going to control somebody else's. Once we stop trying to do that, and we learn to control our reaction to the world around us, life gets a little simpler, a little easier. Because then the focus is on your thoughts, your words, your actions. That's what the practice is. What do you think? What do you say? What do you do in each moment? That's what we're working on. It is a practice. Meditation is not an escape. It's not checking out. It's not a day at the spa. It's not a vacation. It's actually work. It's working on the one thing that is causing all of the pain and suffering and misery in your life, assuming any of you have any of that. If you have none of that, then I'm not really sure why you're here. But it's working on you. You and yourself only are the cause of your pain, your struggles, your suffering. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't face tremendous difficulty around us. That doesn't mean that we're not challenged on a day-to-day basis. But what it means is we have an opportunity to gain control of how we are reacting and responding to the world around us. You know, a lot of questions have come up for obvious reasons, and I totally get it. Very specific during the last 15 months to applying Buddhist practice during this pandemic. And as I've alluded to many times, and I'll just remind us all, you know, a place like this was not empty prior to the pandemic. Meaning, we had plenty of challenges and difficulties and traumas to deal with prior to 15 months ago. Our minds were just as much of a mess then as they are now. The challenges and difficulties we face were just as great then as they are now. They're different. And that's not to minimize at all the last 15 months. But it's important to understand that what we are going through as individuals, as a community, as society, as a global community, will always change. They just change forms, the challenges, the difficulties. One day you're upset because you can't find the channel you want to watch, or you're, whatever, didn't record your favorite show. One day you're upset because a family member does something that you're not happy about. One day you're upset because there's a pandemic. One day you're upset because your coffee wasn't made properly at Starbucks, right? These things always change. The one constant that we come back to is here we are. Our mind, our hearts looking out at the world with an opportunity to embrace it with kindness and compassion and wisdom. Those simple, key Buddhist words we always throw out there, as if it's so easy to just be kind and compassionate all day long. Right? If it was, I wouldn't be sitting here. And so the last thing I want to touch on briefly, just before we open up to questions, is, for me, the last teaching of the Buddha before he died is applicable always. But there are things, obviously, with the last 15 months, and none of this is over, that make things even that much heavier and more difficult for obvious reasons. But before he died, he knew it was his time, and he was ill, and he had all his disciples around him, and they were very concerned because his life was about to be over. And they were worried about who was going to continue to teach them and share with them the practice of what became called Buddhism. And he said, I have left you all of the teachings. He'd been teaching at that time for 45 years. The same thing, 80,000 different ways, as they say in Buddhism, right? So he taught them for 45 years. And what he said was, be a light unto yourself and strive on with diligence. Meaning, here's the practice. It doesn't change. It was as applicable 2,500 years ago as it is today. Loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, all these kind of words you hear in Buddhism day in and day out, in everything you come across in every book you read, it's all right there. But the practice is diligence. And when we face a situation like we have faced the last 15 months and we continue to face today, diligence is critical. So are all the rest, but we're only here for an hour, so I'm just going to focus on one right now. Be diligent with your practice. I'll mention patience without getting too far into it, but be patient with yourself as well. But continue to work on recognizing your own ego, your own pride, your own anger, hatred towards yourself or towards others. Be diligent in waking up to the disappointments, the frustrations, all of these perceptions you've had of your life and the life of those around you. All of these stories that you've told yourself. Be diligent with trying to cut through them and come back to just finding gratitude in this moment. And for me as a practitioner, that's really what it was. When I sat down here and I looked out at all of you and I looked at the YouTube thing and I realized I'm not just staring at myself with a white background and looking at this space, which means you're all here. I immediately was just hit with, here I am. I'm going to be grateful for just being alive and being here. And knowing that my life has not turned out anywhere near how I thought it would. Trust me on that. And it still is not. And it still won't. But be diligent at practicing and coming back to just grateful to be here. I think as a starting point, for me, it really helps. So with that, I guess I do dare risk turning it over to questions. As always, I prefer to ramble for a little bit and then just open up to questions on meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with or want to share. And I'll use the rest of our time this morning just to address your thoughts and questions. So. And the bad news for our millions of YouTube followers, we won't be responding to your questions, but feel free to dialogue amongst each other. I apologize. Yeah, Al?
I would ask a question then. Is there such thing as justifiable anger? Like something you just can't come to terms with? I felt hurt in this social thing, but okay, I could let that go.
Yeah.
But larger things, the Holocaust, Bloody Sunday in Ireland. I had 2 deaths in the family over these past, not my immediate, but just really like why? Why were these people hurt? Why on the largest scale? The Holocaust again, that's something I've asked many times.
Yeah.
Yes, I know it happened, get past it, but some things you just can't. There must be a way. And I know you just talked about it for 10 minutes. I'm sorry for asking this.
No, it's good. No, well, it's a great question. Just
to get around that.
Yeah, just to repeat or sum up the question for those that are viewing. The question around, is there justifiable anger? Things like the Holocaust and real personal life, family, deaths, things like that. Justifiable anger. So I want to point out a couple of things, but start with, just because we look at what the Buddha taught and we try to practice loving kindness and compassion, and we say the teaching, the second noble truth is, the first one is looking at what is suffering, right? That life is filled with that. Life is filled with suffering. This is first teaching. The second, I know you know this, but just to sum it up briefly, the second is what's the cause of our suffering? And the cause is greed, anger, and ignorance. And we overcome greed with generosity, we overcome anger with compassion, we overcome ignorance with wisdom. So the practice of overcoming anger is to practice compassion. But I want to stop there and point out that just because I can tell you this a million times, I've been sitting with you for years now, I could say this to you a million times every day, and you out are still going to have anger arise. I think it first helps, not just for you, but for all of us, to recognize that just because we pick up a beautiful book written by Pema Chodron who's talking about having compassion towards all sentient beings at all times, doesn't mean that we're not going to get angry, right? I'm willing to bet that just about every one of us in this room at some point today, I mean, it's only like 11:40, is going to get angry at some point today. So before we even look at the justifiable, I think it helps to not be, again, not just for you, but for everybody, because I know I did this a lot. I grew up an incredibly angry person. And then I was angry at myself, and I hated myself for being an angry person. And then I got into Buddhism, and they're like, oh, just be kind, be compassionate. I'm like, but I'm angry and pissed off. And now I'm supposed to be kind, and now I feel like I'm a loser and a failure because I can't do this Buddhist thing. Well, that sucks. You're going to have anger arise, and you probably will the rest of your life. I would start there first, to recognize that when anger arises, know that it's okay to feel that. The second thing is to understand that anger will subside, it will pass, it will change. And this is the Buddhist teaching on impermanence. The anger will not stay. It will, up and down, roller coaster of emotion, sometimes be greater than others. So you will have moments in your life where you will be more angry than others. And there are things that are going to occur, some of them you've mentioned, that will cause a greater sense of feeling of anger, right? So the third thing is to look at, as you say, justifiable, right? My understanding of the Buddhist teachings is to abandon this word that we're trying to justify anything. Now, this doesn't make it right or wrong. Something like the Holocaust, it's not about it being right or wrong. I mean, it's a disgusting, terrible thing. And when I say it's not about it being right or wrong, meaning whether I call it right or wrong doesn't change what it was. Does that make sense? Whatever I label or view it or judge it as doesn't change the facts of what happened. What I can control only is what am I going to do about something like that. And if I am filled with anger and rage, and I try to tackle issues like that, right? If I try to tackle racism from a place of anger and rage, I'm only going to bring more anger and rage to a situation that is already filled with anger and hatred and rage. And I'm not going to get very far. So instead of trying to justify anger, for me as a practitioner, I would look at the word upaya, where the verb is upayic. It means skillful means. Okay? So if I look at something like racism, and it makes me angry, and I don't find a skillful way to transform that anger into an action that will actually make a difference in the world, all I'm going to do is create more anger and hate and separation. Justifying things, I don't find that skillful. But again, it doesn't make it a good thing. It's a practice. There's lots of things in this world on a daily basis, large and small, that will really trigger us. And we want to justify what we do. That's really where the practice comes in, is it then becomes this thing where, well, I am justified. It is okay for me to be treating people poorly because they did this. And then I have almost given myself this like free pass to just go be a you-know-what to people. I mean, when we treat people like crap, aren't we often looking for someone to tell us it's okay to do it? But it's not. You know? What's that old expression? 2 wrongs don't make a right. Is that it? Yeah. So, in the, I believe it's the Gandhi quote that said, an eye for an eye will leave the world blind. So, yeah, it's tough. Good question. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This question follows
Yes.
from Al's question.
Oh, that wasn't clear enough.
So, what is the relationship between the Buddhist teaching against judgment and trying to change the external world and activism? So, for example, environmental activism. This is very close to my heart. And I really completely resonate. I mean, I don't feel like there's any enemies in environmental activism. It's just not about good and bad. It's just about the way that the world is arranged. But I do bring a huge amount of judgment to the way that the world is arranged and what that, the consequences that has
Sure.
for the natural world. And so,
enlighten you. And I think you're close enough to the camera there that I don't have to repeat that, the question or the comments. But so similar to my start with Al's question, judgment is going to occur always. And I caution everybody when, especially if you're anyone who's brand new to Buddhism, to think that just because you start learning about Buddhism, that means all of your judgments are just going to like miraculously go away. I mean, I wasn't going to bring this up, but now I will, just to simplify it. Like, I'm passing judgment right now on the fact that we are using this RSVP system because that means Al has to sit over there, and he's usually over there asking questions. And when he asks this question, I'm like, wait, you should be sitting over there because I have an attachment to Al sitting over there asking these questions. And it was really weird for me to see it happening when you're sitting there. And that's simply because I have an expectation, a judgment of you that has been conditioned for years of you being over there. And why are you there? Right? Simple judgments that mean nothing. But they're going to arise. Now imagine judgments that occur on issues that actually matter. Nothing against, you matter, but they're going to be there. Right? And I will always, anytime anyone brings up questions around activism, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, but default to Thich Nhat Hanh, the incredible Zen Buddhist monk from Vietnam, who was nominated by Martin Luther King for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work around social justice issues. And he really coined the phrase, at least to my knowledge, what's called engaged Buddhism. And very often, again, for anybody who might be brand new, often people might have this idea that Buddhists are like doormats, and that you just sit there, with some robe and a shaved head in the forest, and you do nothing, and you cut yourself off from society. There is a piece of that in Buddhism, the do nothing part, but the isolation part, the Thai forest tradition. But there's also the Mahayana Buddhist practice, the Bodhisattva practice. Bodhisattva means enlightened being. Of engaging in the world and engaging in society and having these really, what I would say, and then I'll caution you on this, these really strong views, right? Because that's what's going to make you fight for what you believe in. And that's what Thich Nhat Hanh did, right? As one of the greatest modern day, Buddhist masters that we've ever seen. He fought for what he believed in. But I believe on his teachings and seeing him speak enough that there was no anger or hatred or judgment. Or there was discernment And this is the difference between discernment and judgment. Judgment is, I know better than you. I am above you. I mean, technically, I'm sitting above you right now, which I also hate. There's a discernment that doesn't like the way this is laid out because it creates this, thank you to all the people in chairs because I'm where I love, right? But there's a discernment that takes place where we have to recognize, right? If we didn't recognize our own internal suffering and struggle and depression and anger, we wouldn't be sitting here right now trying to be kinder, gentler human beings towards ourselves and others. We have made a discernment that says, I need to work on myself. Judgment says, I'm a piece of crap, and I'm no good, and I hate myself, and I don't deserve anything. And then we take that judgment and we say, you're a piece of crap because these are your views, and you don't deserve anything, and you're wrong, and this is why. Discernment says, we have different views. Wisdom says, I'm going to understand how the heck do you have those views you have, and I'm going to try my best to understand them. I may never agree with them. I may never like them. I may never take them as my views. But if I'm ever going to make progress at helping people, let's just say, live with more compassion, then I would have to understand why people are living with less compassion, right? And I think it's important to also understand, again, the Thich Nhat Hanh teaching, one of my favorites, and it's a YouTube teaching titled, What is Nirvana? It's like 7 minutes and 41 seconds, and he says Nirvana is freedom from views. And what that means is we are very attached to our views. So freedom from suffering is freedom from views. As I say this, everyone in this room has a view of what I'm saying. Do I agree with what he's saying? Do I disagree with what he's saying? Do I like what he's saying? Do I not like what he's saying? Right? We have views and judgments that we make all day long, and these aren't going away anytime soon, just like anger that arises isn't going away anytime soon. But what do we do with those views? Do we roam around constantly thinking, I'm right and you're wrong? And if that's the action that we take, we're going to be angry a lot. I think engaged Buddhism and activism go hand in hand. They really do. I mean, the Buddha himself was an activist. He spent 45 years of his life literally walking around India trying to change people or trying to teach people how they can change themselves. I mean, what's more activist than that? Right? He sat down for 21 days under the Bodhi tree after roaming for 6 years, trying to figure out how to end his suffering and awaken. And then at 35, once he awakened, he didn't just be like, yo, peace out, right? He then went into the world and said, let's figure out how to help people suffer less. So, and if we don't figure out how to help the environment, then there's going to be an even greater amount of suffering that exists, even more so than today. So, to sum that up, discernment, judgment. Does that help?
So much.
Good. Good.
So much.
Sorry you had to wait 15 months for that.
Took me 15 months to come up.
15 months, that's a good question. We're working on that. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Someone was telling me I should practice one of the perfections every day, choose one to practice it.
Yeah, that's a great practice.
Yeah, except when you get to the wisdom one, how does one practice wisdom?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So let me sum up just for those who don't know. What Tom is talking about is the Bodhisattva practice. Again, Bodhisattva means enlightened being, of the paramitas. The paramitas translate to perfections. It doesn't mean being perfect. It's just working on the 6 practices of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. And my first master, it's what she always taught, it's what I learned, it's what I share in just about everything I do. And for me, it is my daily practice of working on how can I become aware of where I'm struggling with generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and the last one being wisdom. Now, the funny thing is, when we do the Dharma Bum Life program, I know many of you have done it, we do the same thing for the college group, when we list the paramitas and wisdom is there, it's left blank. Because as soon as we start talking about wisdom, we have actually missed what wisdom actually is, right? This really comes from the Buddhist teachings on emptiness, where he praised Subhuti, his disciple, for giving such a great discourse on emptiness because Subhuti said nothing. And he said, great job. In other words, for me to sit here and tell you what wisdom is, I would be wrong. But as I alluded to earlier, the second noble truth, which is the cause of our suffering, is greed, anger, ignorance. We overcome ignorance with wisdom. So if I said to you, Tom, what is ultimate wisdom? You couldn't answer that. But if I said to you, where's Tom ignorance? How would that, Dama, no laughing, I heard that, even behind the mask. If I said, where are you ignorant? Could you answer that question? Yeah, again, we only have an hour here, so we don't have time for this. But it'd be pretty easy, not just for you, but for all of us to recognize our own ignorance. And so instead of trying to figure out what is ultimate wisdom, look at all our ignorance over here, in case you got any, and say, how can I decrease some of this? And if I decrease ignorance, then that's wise. It's, for me, the way I've found it very beneficial, the Buddhist teachings on ending suffering, right? So if you come into Buddhism and you're like, okay, I want to end suffering, that sounds great. And you're at this stuff for 6 weeks and you're like, well, wait, how come my suffering hasn't ended yet? You're going to be really disappointed. So I don't look at it as how can I end suffering? I think how can I suffer less today than I did yesterday? And if I'm fortunate enough to stay alive and wake up tomorrow, then I'm going to say, how can I suffer less today, yet tomorrow than I did yesterday, being today? So less ignorance is greater wisdom. Another way I like to look at wisdom is simply the first 5 paramitas, right? Greater understanding and practice of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, and concentration. If you put those 5 into practice, that's a pretty wise practice. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, hope that's helpful. Other thoughts, questions?
I just want to say thanks for, opening up and like this talk today. I recommend it and rewatch it for whatever reason. It's just what was necessary for me to hear today, and there's so much in it. And so like the last 15 months, we all sort of, well, I did. I became really complacent, and this is my world, and I don't have all these things you were talking about today. But as you were talking about them, I was like, oh my God, like there's so much of that. And there was like, I just feel like I learned so much today, and I watched the YouTube talks, but I feel like, we need the human to human, and the emotion here is different, and I'm just really happy to be here, and I really feel like, I have not been practicing all along. And, I know this is just a place, but I feel connected, and I feel like whatever connects me to work on my practice, whatever it takes, because of all these things we were talking about today, it's so huge, I know I'm different, I know a lot of things happen, and I know when I was regularly coming here and having a sense of service, is different. I was happier. Not that that's the core, but I just feel it's necessary sometimes to connect to whatever practice you're in. It just helps to, be of service. And that was, I've known you for a while, and I used to sweep after Saturday mornings. Give me the broom. I just wanted to sweep. I just wanted to do something. I just want to be a part of something. So I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, today's a good learning day.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll close on that comment and thoughts, and thank you, Vicki. It's first, not that I need to say this, but it's so hard to connect deeply staring at myself on a YouTube screen talking to everybody. And it's they're called viharas, they're temples, and they're built for reasons. And the Buddha, the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, right? The community of people that gather to practice and share and explore their own misery and suffering together and with the intention of finding a sense of happiness and peace in their lives is critical. And it's incredibly important, and when I think back to this journey and putting a place together doesn't happen without all the people, and it's really what you alluded to. It's the people that make something like this so special, and it's all of us taking care of it. And I think we've all changed, or at least we've woken up, hopefully, a lot to where we need to change, and where we want to change, and where we hope to change. And then again, coming back to the diligence, and it's okay, I think back, and I'll close with this thought. When I first went to the temple, the Buddhist temple down the street in 18 years ago, 2003, and I remember my very first, you've been around for 10 years, so I'm not worried about that. But I remember my very first time I went to that temple, and I felt this overwhelming sense of relief and liberation and freedom, and it was incredible. And I talked to the nun afterwards, and I was ready to sign up, man. I didn't even care what it was I was doing. I didn't even know. I was I'm in. Sign me up. What you want? Whatever, take it. I don't care. And I said, I'll see you tomorrow. A lot of you have heard the story, but 6 months went by. I never even went back. And so I know what that's like, that feeling of the Buddha taught that there are healthy cravings and desires. Craving and desire is the root cause of our suffering. Constantly wanting, craving, desiring more. But there are also healthy cravings, healthy desires. And one of them is a craving and desire to suffer less. And really, to me, what I'm hearing you say is that that craving and desire to suffer less is so huge. That's what makes this work. That's what allows this stuff to settle with you. Is we reach a point where hopefully you say, I'm just sick and tired of suffering. I'm sick and tired of being angry, depressed, and miserable all day long, or stressed and anxious. And that's where the diligence comes into play, of just showing up to practice wherever it is. So on that, we'll close, and I'll do a few announcements. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace and free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 4 million people who've lost lives over the last 15 months, and to those today who still battle, and the family and friends affected by those lost. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out to grab your shoes out of the new shoe racks. Thank you all for being here. And humor just doesn't work the same when I'm staring at myself. I just couldn't be funny when I'm staring at myself on the screen. It just sucked. It was so hard. Even when I tried to make a joke, I was like, this is not funny. And I just stopped, you know. But thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm the Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple almost 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks or nuns, we're not gurus or masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners doing our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully those who show up would understand. So just about every night we have different classes going on. As you all know, and I'll touch on that at the end, we've kind of got this bit of a hybrid schedule going on right now. But it is incredible to be open again. We have tried to stay many months behind what the popular view is in this country, and in this state, and this city, out of tremendous love, respect, and care for those who have been lost in this community, those who've lost loved ones in this community, and just to continue to be safe. You know, the pandemic is not over, it's not behind us. We might be in a little bubble where we feel it's safe, and I get that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that things are opening up, because that is a sign that things are continuing to head in the right direction. We will still, at this temple, remain cautious for a little bit, which allows the people that do show up to feel comfortable showing up, and that's really our intention. You know, I didn't view this as a, you know, it is beautiful to be here, but to me this wasn't a celebration, this wasn't a grand reopening. This was just like grateful to open the doors and have some people here. You know, just gratitude to be here. So moving forward, I don't think anybody dislikes the RSVP system any more than we do, because we're the ones who have to build it, set it up, maintain it, and manage it. But it will stay in place for a little while. Maybe it's 4 weeks, maybe it's 16 weeks, I don't know. It'll stay in place for a little while, because like I said, it does allow us to manage the flow of people through here. So please continue to use the RSVP system for most of the classes that we have. The website has been like 10 times updated and changed with all the information. Most of our classes are back and running, whether it's here or online, and some will be both. So bear with us as we kind of fumble through how to deal with all of this. We don't have a plan for opening up post-pandemic. It wasn't in our manual. So bear with us, but the temple will be open for scheduled class times. So when there is a class happening here, the temple will be open for that class. It will open up, as of now, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, potentially before that class. Other than that, the temple is open Saturday and Sundays, 12 to 3. So if you just want to come quietly when nobody's around and you just want to sit in the main hall, don't do it on a Wednesday, 2 o'clock, right? Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 3, and then class time. That's the schedule for right now. Outreach programs, food distribution, we are way, way away from that happening for obvious reasons. But we will slowly open up as much as we can, which is as comfortable to those who show up here, for those who show up here. Same thing with Buddha for You, 12 to 3, Saturdays and Sundays. It'll be closed during the week. I don't know if it'll be open for classes during the week or not. I'm not sure. But same thing, everything here is pretty much managed by 120 volunteers, but then 3 of us, Maggie, Travis, and myself, who really kind of hold and do all this stuff and hold it together. So we have to be very careful that we don't just dump too much on us, that we can manage and handle. Because while there might be just one of you sitting there right now, we typically would see 600 to 800 people a week through this place. And there's 3 of us holding it down. So we need to manage that as well, which is one of the many reasons we're just slowly reopening. But like I said, Buddha for You, 12 to 3, Saturday, Sunday. That's that. So again, so much gratitude. Yeah, Molly, go ahead.
Would you consider letting us, say you don't get a reservation made in time, it looks like it's full, but there's always people who don't show up because things come up, like people coming, doing like standby?
Yes, so we knew that was going to happen today. We didn't know how to manage it really, but we knew that we had the registration RSVP filled up right away. We also know that anytime you have a list of 40 people, there's always going to be a few who don't show up. And so we, as you were all carded and ID'd and fingerprinted at the door, just kidding, we then, if somebody didn't show up, we opened up a space. So yes, if you don't RSVP and you want to show up and there are seats available, absolutely. We just didn't want to announce that today because we didn't know what to expect yet. And we were trying to avoid a bunch of people showing up. Like, it kills me. For 15 years, this has been just show up. I don't care who you are, what you're dealing with, just show up. And now we got Travis at the door with a sign-in sheet. We joked about having a velvet rope, So we wanted to deter like 20 more people showing up that we had to tell to go home. That would have sucked. But yes, there will almost always be a few that don't show up. If you do RSVP, and no knock on anyone who didn't do it today, but if you do RSVP and you're unable to make it or show up or something like that, then try to let us know so we can then open up that seat for somebody else,
How would we let you know? Let's say something.
Send an email to the website. If you've RSVP'd and you can't make it, just send an email to the website. Yeah, that says, I'm RSVP'd for 1 and I can't be there. And that'll allow us to open up the standby list. We charge them extra to come in, but. So anything else before we head out? And I had it approved and felt comfortable being, at least 6, 8, 10 feet away from those in the, shouting distance to sit up here and lead you all without a mask, but now it's going back on. So, and we appreciate you respecting the policies that we've set up, because we have to for now. So, thank you all. Please be well, and remember, there are new bathroom door signs. It's been 15 years, we're going to try again. It actually says public restroom, please wear shoes. So that actually means please wear shoes in the restroom. Thank you very much. Good to be back with you all.
We're not making the announcement.
And please return things as you found them. Thank you. You could make that announcement.